Hey there, insiders. It's Corey Kuhn here again to talk about the topic of the week on Mindfulness Monday. And something I really wanted to do today is kind of take you through some of the blogs I've been reading at Insight 8 and maybe highlight some of the ones that we've had in the past, as well as what's going on right now, to kind of give you an update and kind of pull you in of what we're talking about here at Insight 8. So today, it's funny. I was just in North Dakota over the weekend visiting my in-laws, and we were in this area of North Dakota that used to be dairy country, and I asked why that went away or what happened there. And my in-laws told me about how hard it is to be a dairy farmer and the hard work that it involves. And it really kind of made me think about how, nowadays so often we're looking for ways to make things easier. That's what technology is about. That's kind of the wonder of being human is the tendency to find ways to make things easier for ourselves. But when we think of that in terms of our mental health and our psychological health, I get this vision in my mind of when you're sick or you're tired and maybe you sit down on the couch to relax and maybe watch a TV show and then another TV show, and then after a while you get that itchiness, that stir craziness, and you want to just do something else, anything else. It really kind of came to me, and that was an image I was thinking of. And then I was reading Mar's newest blog post about making yourself uncomfortable, and that's exactly kind of the image that she talks about in that blog of that the life crisis that comes about in life, where you want to be comfortable, you try to be comfortable, you do everything you can to be comfortable until it's no longer comfortable anymore. And often we drive ourselves to distraction, or we watch a different show, or we try to find something to make ourselves more comfortable instead of maybe leaning into that discomfort and trying to explore it and make sense of it. And so I really loved Mar's blog post this week about making yourself uncomfortable, and it kind of brought me back to one of our earlier posts by Julie. If you go into the blog at insight8.com and you look through some of the archives, if you look at Julie D's blogs, she's one of our contributors, and she wrote a blog a while ago. It's titled Breathe and Floss. And basically the idea is when you're feeling anxious, you're feeling that discomfort, to breathe into it and to, it's sort of like a yoga term, you floss the muscle that's strained. And so you can do that same thing when you're feeling anxious in life, is breathe and floss, lean into that discomfort and kind of explore it instead of running away from it. I think that's something that comes up for me often when I think about my results from the Insight 8 personality assessment. It talks about when you're at your worst, that strength-based model, but also when you're at your best. And sometimes it takes being brave and flossing or leaning into the discomfort of looking at, there's times I'm not at my best. So there's times that, I get in my own way, or I hurt myself by the way that I'm acting or the way that I make decisions. And so it takes some work to breathe into that, or to lean into that and to learn from it. And that's really the strength-based model, is to learn from when you're at your worst, or learn from your weaknesses, so that you can apply your strengths and leverage those in a way, or even better sometimes, to bring other people in who can leverage your strengths or compensate for when you're at your worst, and understand how those personalities can work together to, be more successful. I said I was going to provide a little bit of psychoeducation on anxiety today. It brings me back to another blog in our archives about taking risks. It was actually one that I wrote, one of my first blogs that I wrote for Insight 8. And it's called 3 Ways to Turn Risk-Taking into Reward. And it's all about feeling anxiety and taking the risk anyway, being mindful of the anxiety that occurs. If you think about anxiety, it really does serve an important function in a lot of different ways. It keeps us safe from an evolutionary standpoint, if something made us anxious, it was probably something dangerous. And so we learned to avoid it, and we learned to stay alive. And so now you see anxiety being very helpful in a lot of ways, but sometimes also holding us back because we perceive something as dangerous when maybe it isn't. And so, or maybe it is dangerous, but taking that risk could create a really important reward for us. So if I have 3 things for you to read this week, it's Mars' blog. It's the most recent one that we just posted about, the title's Please Make Yourself Uncomfortable. It's about taking risks and ways of doing that. Breathe and Floss by Julie D. And then 3 ways to turn risk-taking into a reward. And that one was written by me, Corey. So you can go onto our blog and read those 3. Really great reading. I think they go really well together. And they talk about how you can take that evolutionary, like genetic or physiological response to things that are challenging or scary, and turning them into a positive in your life, and kind of flipping the switch on some of that anxiety. So those are 3 great reads. So those are 3 things you should do this week if you have a little bit of time. They're not long, they're pretty quick. What else? I just want to take a second and remind you that there are lots of great things that we have planned, but we also want your input. What do you want to hear about? What's going on with you? I just received a request about talking about staying positive. That's up on the blog too. So good things to come. And I will talk to you next week, Insiders. Bye.